guys, so today we're going to be making plaster masks, and here's my example, and this is not painted yet, but this is the process that I'll be sharing with you. And in just a second I'll go over what supplies you'll need. I will warn you, it's a pretty messy project, and so you'll want to cover like your surface area and be prepared to make a bit of a mess. So we'll get started. Okay, these are the supplies you'll need for today's lesson. You'll need some type of mask mold. These are available at craft stores or online craft websites. You can buy animal mask molds, you can buy people, you can do like the half face molds. You'll need some water, and then this is plaster wrap, and you can buy it in individual packages like this. I think there's a brand, or there used to be a brand called Rigid Wrap, but any type of fabric that has basically been dipped in plaster, and it looks a lot like a bandage. And you can also buy it like in boxes, and I've got a roll here. And so to start, you're going to need to go ahead and pre-cut your strips. And you'll notice, I'm going to move this out of our way, you'll notice it's really dusty. It makes quite the mess, so you'll want to cover your surface area. And I'm going to go ahead and probably cut about 25 or 30 strips. The size is maybe 1.5 inches, you know, by I think it's 4 inches wide, maybe only 3. But cut you a stack of these, because once your fingers get wet, they'll get kind of pasty, and then it gets all over your scissors and ends up making a big mess. So I cut all my strips in the beginning, and it just helps it to go faster. The plaster, after you dip it in the water and apply it to your mask, it will start to kind of dry as you go. And so that's another reason it's helpful to have your strips cut in the beginning. Okay, so at this point I'm about ready to go ahead and start applying the strips to the mask. And so I will take a strip, and I'm going to start at the forehead just because it's a flatter area that's easy to work with, and you just dip it quickly into the water. There's no need to let it soak. Then you apply it on the mask, and you'll take your fingers, kind of hold it steady with one hand, and then smooth out the little holes that are in the fabric so that the plaster kind of fills in those holes. When you go to apply your next strip, you want to make sure that it overlaps the first strip. And the reason why is if we had them just like where they were side by side like this, there would be a crack once it's dried. When we popped it off the plastic mask mold, it would have a weak spot and it could potentially break, you know, or it just wouldn't look good because it wouldn't be solid. So I've overlapped the edges just a little, and then I smooth it so it kind of bonds and becomes one continuous piece. And this area is a little more tricky when you get to the eyes and the nose, but you get better at it as you go, and the key is just to kind of hold it steady and work with it. You do not have to turn your strips all the same way. Like when you get to the side of the face, you can turn your mask and apply them long way as well, but you still are overlapping and smoothing out all the little holes. I mean, if you liked the texture of the holes, you could leave it, but most of the time we paint plaster once we finished it if we're making like a decorative mask, and that's really hard to paint if you leave all that texture there. It's a lot easier if you take the time to smooth it out. And I will say, if you're planning on painting yours, I have tried tempera before, and it does not bond to the plaster. It will peel when it dries, and so you'll want to plan on using an acrylic paint. And then I always follow up the acrylic paint with a coat of like the clear gloss Mod Podge. That just kind of seals it and makes the mask even harder and less breakable. It makes it more sturdy. I've had people ask about cutting out the eye holes. You can do that. You just have to be sure to make it thick around the edges, because if you have the plaster really thin, then it's really breakable and it doesn't work well. It's easiest if you do a solid one, but you can always try for something more challenging and go around the eye area. You could even fold the plaster in half to make that a thicker edge around the eyes. Now you'll notice this mask mold has like a rim around the edge. That rim can be really helpful if you want to add feathers, flowers, raffia, like for hair for your mask once it's finished. But if you don't want to add anything extra, there's not really a reason you should have it. But I'm going to kind of show you both ways. If you don't want the rim or the ledge on the mask, you would just line up your strips just like that so it meets up right in that crevice. And we'll go on and smooth this one out. If you decide that you do want to add hair or feathers or wire or whatever, that gives you a good base like to hot glue or attach anything that you would like to come out from the mask shape itself. And so if you want the ledge or the rim, you can take it and kind of lay it out here and just kind of press it in and fit it into the area. I had a student in my class one year who folded them all the way around the edges, and that was a big problem because it dries hard, and then I could not get their mask off of the mask mold once it had dried. So make sure that you're not folding that over the edge, that you just simply pull it down and smooth it out, or else you will have a very difficult time getting it off of the mask mold. And so now I will just continue working my way around the entire mask, and when I'm done, I will go back and check and look and see if I have any spots where the plaster looks thin, where I can see through to the white mask mold, and if so, I can put a second coat. It will take longer to dry if I put a second coat, but it does make your mask much stronger, so you can consider doing that when you finish. And so now I'm just going to continue adding the plaster. Okay, so I've finished applying the plaster, and now the best thing to do is probably leave it to dry overnight. If you have like a heating or air vent, or if it's nice outside and it's not humid, you could lay it outside to dry and it would dry faster. Probably a minimum of 6 to 8 hours to dry, but I usually leave them overnight. And then we will pop it off the mask mold once it's dry, and I will show you that process. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just let it do its thing and dry. Okay, so I've let my mask dry overnight. It's been about 24 hours, and you can hear it's dried really hard. And so now I am going to pop it off of the plastic mold. The easiest way is to kind of go around the edges and just lift up to loosen it, and then hold on firmly and just kind of wiggle the plastic mold out. And so there is my plaster mask. And you'll see I have this kind of uneven edge now. Remember, that's like the rim where I said you could hot glue like raffia. For hair, you could hot glue feathers, flowers. If you choose not to use it or it gets in the way, you can just take a pair of scissors and trim this off, or you can go on and glue the stuff and then trim it off. Some people sand their mask down to get rid of like the rougher spots. Because I usually do this in a classroom setting, we just leave it and paint it as is. But you could sand it. It would just create a lot of dust, but that would give it a smooth finish. And so then at this point, you can just decide like what type of mask you'd like to make, and then use acrylic paint and follow it up with some type of acrylic clear coat, and then you would have a finished product. And so that is basic plaster mask making.
So I hope you had fun making your plaster mask. I'll be posting videos soon that show different ways you can paint your mask. I'll do an African mask, a Day of the Dead Sugar Skull mask, and a Mexican wrestling mask. So be looking for those. If you decide to go ahead and paint your mask in the meantime, remember to use an acrylic paint that will bond to the plaster and follow it up with a clear coat. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like us, comment, and subscribe for more creative content. Thanks.